Okay, hey, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have another cool review, guys, from the brand Agelocer. And essentially, they're a Chinese micro brand established back in 2013. They've already won a few international design awards, showing that they're pretty serious about combining bold designs and high quality craftsmanship at an accessible price point. They really specialize in wild card type of watches, although I'd say this kind of borders for me, although it is really all in on its theme. This is kind of straddling the line between a wild card watch and kind of more of a dressy everyday type of piece. But in terms of the theme, or I should say of their expertise within wildcard watches, I'll tell you a little bit about that style of watch. Of course, you're going to want something that's a little bit more eccentric and sometimes over-the-top styling, for a standout piece on the wrist that is equal parts conversation piece as it is timepiece. This is from their Astronomer series, and it's in their original Panoramic Moon Phase with the gray dial configuration on the steel bracelet. And it's a handsome original design with an innovative high-spec movement that is 1.5 times more accurate than the traditional moon phase movement, which normally those can just be based off of date wheel architecture. And essentially here they did their due diligence to make it more accurate by actually upgrading the teeth and however many times it turns over, essentially, which makes it more in line. So instead of it being like a traditional moon phase where you're going to have an error maybe every 4 years, this is going to be an error like every 1 year and a couple of months or something like that. So there's more information down in the links in the description. So if you are interested in that, if you're a little bit worried about that, don't worry, because this does have a 2-year warranty as well as a 90-day full return window to where you can get all your money back if you are not satisfied. So this does go for a full price of $755, and that is as configured. But currently, I checked their site at the time of recording, and this is on sale for $529 on bracelet. Now, this sample was kindly provided by the brand for the purpose of this review, but no brand ever has any editorial input on the review, and the thoughts are always my own. So with all that said, let's go ahead and zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, now very handsomely designed. You can see that very large and in-your-face panoramic moon phase versus it being a smaller complication here. It definitely is the entire theme, especially in this silver dial colorway. So you get more of that kind of those gray moon tones. And I think it looks really, really good. In terms of dimensions, 40 millimeters in diameter, 12 millimeters thick, and that's including the crystal. And then just under 47 millimeters lug to lug at 46.9 millimeters. That is measured with my own calipers. This is made out of 316L stainless steel. It is brushed and polished. And I think it does have some nice transitions in terms of the finishing there. Actually, let me give it a quick wipe. It is a little bit warmer here in Southern California at the time of recording, so hopefully my fingerprints don't get too smudgy on here, but you can see very nice transition, which honestly is to be expected these days. I mean, we're seeing production really just so many light years ahead of what it once was, 10, 15 years ago for standard watches. So something like this, although, on sale currently for under $530, it's pretty impressive, especially for the case. I'll say the bracelet isn't as, I would say, as good as the case, but that's a story for tons of watches that I love, including brands like Seiko, right? Like where the case is really the case and dial, or where they specialize, and then the bracelets are just kind of, they are what they are, right? Like you're not going to buy this because of the bracelet, but it's nice that it comes with one. It also actually has another option as well, which they sent. So this is their leather strap. Very nice tonality there, nicely signed, fully milled, high polished. Great little underliner there, even curvature with these quick release spring bars. So very nice. Some people would probably prefer this setup. For me, I'm a bracelet guy. I think the bracelet really is something that helps this piece stand out even more. Now, the crystal is a low dome sapphire with an inner AR coating. It also does have this nice push-pull crown, which is nicely signed. And then the movement inside is their automatic caliber A4610. And it is essentially, from what I can tell online, it's based off of the Hangzhou caliber 7200 Alpha. And it's not a bad caliber. It's actually pretty high spec, guys, in terms of having an 80-hour power reserve and beating at 4 hertz. Yes, the full 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate, so nice and smooth. And then it's actually accurate to -10 to +20 seconds per day. Although this doesn't have a running seconds hand, so it's, you know, it's not the easiest thing to track daily variance on, but I will say that I've been, nothing has stood out as really crazy in terms of like it's on the far ends of anything. Now, speaking of this movement, just to kind of give you guys a visual here, we'll pop it out to the first position and we'll just get it going, and we can see really, really handsome way. And yeah, you know, you can have a full moon or you could have no moon. And I think that's a lot of fun, especially if this is something you're going to wear on a regular basis. Of course, in terms of setting that, you would just go online and look up whatever the moon phase is at. It's really easy, and then you basically will just make it match in terms of the amount of coverage. But I will say that I think this is a very, very handsome looking watch. I mean, getting into the dial details here, you know, you have this oversized multi-layer textured panoramic moon phase dial, polished hands. The lume does glow green on the moon, so there is actually some lume applied, but not anywhere else essentially besides the moon. And then you do have 50 atmospheres or 50 meters or 5 atmospheres of water resistance, which isn't too shabby, especially for something that's this dressy. Although considering at the 40 millimeter, size range, that feels a little bit more robust, and it would be nice if they could have more, but 50 is better than 30, honestly, and 30 is probably the minimum I would expect from something like this. 100 would be nice, but I also understand why it wouldn't be, because it kind of doesn't need to really be 100 meters of water resistance. You just need to not try to submerge a watch like this, because that's not what it's for. Now, in terms of the other proportions, guys, 20 millimeter lug width, you're getting this solid 7-link bracelet with split pin construction, so that's going to let some people down there. But again, I think all the money really went into this dial, this complication, the choice of movement. It does have a 2 millimeter taper down to an 18 millimeter end here at this nice push button deployant clasp there. So yeah, I mean, great look and movement here, guys. That's no joke. There's definitely crappier movements you can fit a moon phase to. So again, the fact that you're going to get 80 hours of power reserve and still have it at 4 hertz and it still be within reasonable accuracy there, I think that is pretty nice. So with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, or 19 centimeters in circumference, I think this is a great looking piece. Definitely more full size, not on that mid-sized or very classically dressy size range. But I've also reviewed quite a few high complication watches that were around 40 millimeters. And I have to say that, yeah, this one fits right in. And some of those other watches were a lot more expensive than this. So this definitely takes a page out of a similar playbook, where you're going to have a good amount of wrist presence there. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to notice quite a bit of, perspective distortion, which is going to make the watch seem a lot larger on the wrist. Whereas if I keep my wrist nice and low, all of a sudden you're seeing the sides of my wrist there, like they're not falling away as you get here, right? In the same way that you're seeing the bracelet kind of fall away here, you're going to just have a better angle. So what I'll do is, in terms of that angle of view now, I'll just tighten up the frame so you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as how this may lay on your own wrist. And look at that, pretty nicely centered. And you know what? Although my wrist is on the larger side of average at 7.5 inches, it is quite a tall and round wrist. It's not like super wide, flat, and accommodating. So you might even have a smaller wrist than me, but be able to pull off a larger watches in terms of lug to lug, because maybe your wrist is very flat versus mine not as flat, right? Because we are in a world of multiple dimensions. Now, I have to say, in terms of the way that it wears, guys, I dig it. I think they did a nice job there. I mean, you can see the finishing. I mean, it's good looking. This is a handsome piece. Definitely feels like something you would, pay a decent amount of money for from a brand like, let's say, Christopher Ward, right? They do similar things in terms of that. I would say this space of those kind of larger, everyday, dressy, fun complication type watches. So I think, Agelocer did a very, their name is pretty tough to pronounce. Not super intuitive, but man, I have to say this is a very cool looking piece. Again, those gray tones, those kind of fume accents there where you're getting that gradient. It just really goes with this moon silver light type of theme. So with that said, let's get it off the wrist, set for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right, not a lot of Lume, right? But you do have something that's lumed, which is that moon. And it could probably use a bit of a supercharge here because, there's only so much you can actually pour onto that space because it is, although it is textured, it's not like it's very deep and you can like have a deep filled, a deep filled indice. That is actually really, really cool looking. And I suspect it will look even cooler in some transitional lighting, which is kind of my specialty. I always like to work in that low light transition because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And as you guys can see there, this is not some type of tool watch where, legibility is going to be the number one priority. But I will say the high polished indices and hands reflecting off of a dark room against a bright backdrop does work with legibility. So it doesn't get washed out or anything like that. But that moon, you can see the texturing in it. It's just really cool looking. So I dig that. Again, this isn't some crazy thing. It's already fading pretty crazy. So we'll go ahead and hit the lights here and get into some closing thoughts, guys. On the wrist, decent full-sized wear profile, not small enough to be classically dressy, but still modest enough in size to dress up well enough for most formal occasions, while still remaining versatile enough for casual daily wear. Yeah, this is something you could wear with a t-shirt and jeans, and that's completely fine. But you could also probably wear it with some smart kind of business casual, business formal, and you still would be doing all right for yourself. Now, in terms of model variants, do check the site links for options and availability, but there are a couple of different color combos that are available, and of course, you can always put this on a strap instead of having it on the bracelet. Now, in terms of comparable models, guys, Dressy Moon Phase watches are far from my specialty, but I do recognize effort when I see it, and the closest thing that really comes to mind in terms of comparables would be something like the C1 Moonphase 40 from Christopher Ward, which goes for about $28.50 by comparison. And yeah, Christopher Ward is a micro brand, and I love them, and they're doing well, and that's great and everything. But at the end of the day, that's not even a brand that's charging you like history tax or lore tax, right? Like that's just, what you kind of should expect to pay for a really well-designed moon phase. So yeah, $28.50, and you can get this for $5.29. I think that is pretty awesome. So for me, guys, bottom line, while not my cup of tea, there's still a lot to respect and appreciate here. While the bracelet is pretty mediocre, I will say the rest of the package is actually quite compelling, all things considered. But you let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like, and if you're already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.